and policies for broadband deployment in developing countries. Now I think we resume and give opportunity to Mr. Zaid Al-Qadi in remote. He was waiting for us since the morning. Zaid Al-Qadi is Director of Directorate of Beneficiary Affairs in Telecom Regulatory Commission and Jordan. Mr. Zaid, please.
Thank you, Mohammed. I'm sorry not being in Algeria. It was unfortunate. I'm not going to be able to join you, definitely. But let's begin the presentation here. I hope you guys are seeing what I'm going to present. In general, I'm going to give an overall status on the connectivity and mapping and the visualization that TRC in Jordan is following. Let's go for an info graphic connectivity status in Jordan and give you and public some insights about Jordan current status. We are following the ITU recommendations in terms of meaningful connectivity, and we have participated in many editorials, and I advise all regulators across the MENA region to have a look at it, which is E806, E812, and 813. They're speaking about connectivity tools and crowdsourcing tools, and the mapping and connectivity recommendations, which we actually developed along with Tunisia, India, and Mexico. Currently, Jordan have improved their fixed global rank to the 31st position, which it came after many efforts by introducing connectivity over power grid and enhancing the fiber packages in Jordan and the rolling out of fiber. Moreover, we have wholesale operators and many retail ISP operators. In Jordan market, we have introduced newly the FTTR services, fiber to the room services, up to 2 gigabit per second.
Sorry,
yeah.
Can you make full screen, please, so that we can see much better?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, please. Go ahead. Sorry for interrupting.
No problem. Is that better? Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, great. And of course, in terms of population coverage, right now, Jordan enjoys 3G and 4G coverage in terms of almost 100% and 97%. And as you know, last year, we've enrolled 5G all over Jordan. Currently, there is 5G services in Jordan with a population density around 31%. As I explained, the real success behind being the fourth in the Arab region in terms of the rank and the global rank 31st is because we've used infrastructure for the power grid. So now any power grid connected home can have internet easily, especially in the middle region. Having this enabled Jordan to be having a home pass by rate reaching 70% and reaching 155 megabits per second as the fixed median download across Jordan as per September 24. We've introduced international gateways, new international gateways. So far, we have 11 international gateways. Some of them are submarine connected. There is also a new project, Blue Raman, which is connected to an IXP on the Aqaba port. Google is part of, and Amazon hopefully is part of this IXP. We are the 7th in the 5G MENA region to roll out this 5G. The latency have dropped in terms of the fixed latency to 4 milliseconds, and almost we're talking about 70 to 75% of the fixed connectivity is fiber now, because this is maybe 2000 Q1 24. Speaking of this month, we're talking about 75%. So this is an overall infographic for Jordan status. Speaking about connectivity, we also look at two indicators, which is the GSMA MCI indicator, which have elevated the position from transitioning to advanced after reaching the score of 70% as per GSMA classification. This rank came after the enhancement of the infrastructure and the network coverage dimension. As we can see, the scoring have advanced since 21 to 23. The latest from GSMA is only 2023. Also, as we spoke, the ranking from UCLA for the fixed broadband for the past month grew from 34 to 31st, and for the mobile, still in the mobile, hopefully when the 5G takes its place, we will advance. Currently, it's the 84th, reaching only 29 to almost 30 megabits per second. So those are statistics on the infrastructure ranking and the connectivity index for UCLA and the GSMA. Speaking of regulatory measures that the TRC have followed to make sure that there is digital inclusion and reduce the gap for digital issues, we have incentivized some operators by reducing revenue tax, and that will be versus building 100 sites or 100 base stations in the low populated areas where the regulator have identified that such location needs coverage, and as such, the regulator have built around 300 base stations in the low populated areas for all operators. And also for the fixed broadband access, we are using right now the TDD for that. It's a dying technology, but it's still ongoing. The TDD have obligations from their operators. They should build in the low populated areas also. As we spoke about the 5G rollout, there was a deal with the government, and there is obligations related to the operators by 2027, February 1st, to be specific, 2027, 50% of the Jordanian population should have 5G, and 75% by the 9th year, which would be 2031. But as speaking out of 50% population to have 5G within 24 months, 27 months, that's good enough. Right now, we're having around 30% of the population density with 5G coverage. The issue for the operators is to have the use cases for 5G and balance it out with the fiber rollout, so they don't actually compete to each other as technologies. 5G as a FWA services is covering villages, downtowns, small towns, of which ADSL is there only, but not fiber. So those obligations also include 360 base stations per operator in the low populated areas, in the new areas, and also it is identified by TRC.
Zaid, please just be brief because we have
I'm almost done.
2 minutes speaker. I'm sorry. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Zaid.
Also, we have introduced a new, the first LEO satellite internet operator, Starlink, will start their service on January 2025. And as I spoke, that the power grid was introduced to be the infrastructure for last mile connectivity. Of course, LoRaWAN technology was introduced in the past 3 years for IoT services. And definitely we have used the broadband mapping for crowdsourcing. Just to speak about, Muhammad, about the access and the coverage challenges, as you know, on the northern western side of Jordan, it is just like Algeria in the north, there is difficult terrain, and that's putting some challenges on rollout, whether it was mobile or fixed. I just wanted to highlight this coverage challenge. Um, Speaking of digital mapping and mapping and visualizations, Jordan uses crowdsourcing as also drive testing technologies to combine their vision on who lacks coverage and validation of complaints. I just wanted to highlight those data collection and visual representation. We use it since 2018 to investigate the broadband mapping. And also we use 3D modeling for the coverage in Jordan, especially for the high rises and the building, to pinpoint where is the issues. And that is very important for the regulator to understand where is the coverage issues and the performance and quality issues. I just wanted to highlight in the last slide this recommendation, which I spoke earlier on. We have developed, along with the ITU members, the composite connectivity index, where it actually combines a connectivity index. It includes the socioeconomic factors, the infrastructure that is in the country. So it's very important recommendation. I recommend regulators and operators to look at it and make use of it. And those are the new definitions for the 813, which was spoken earlier about connectivity index. It's a scalar level that represents the overall degree of connectivity. Those data tools are very important for this recommendation, and that will help the overall connectivity mapping for any regulator. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Zaid. I know that you are active in ITUT Study Group 12 on quality of service. Thank you for this presentation. I will maybe we give you one question maybe at the end in Q&A, just short question. But now I move to Mr. Pavel. It's better that we continue the presentation. Mr. Pavel, as I introduced him, is an ITU consultant. Please, Mr. Pavel, 10 minutes. Kindly, just be brief. Your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting. It's a great honor for me to to make this presentation and having this distinguished auditorium. My idea is to provide you with the scope of new regulatory methods in view of active deployment of 5G networks worldwide. And of course, I will emphasize the needs of the developing countries. The summary of my presentation is just to start with introduction of 5G applications in different industry sectors, and then I will provide you with the model how we can describe the behavior of 5G economy ecosystem, and then we will see how different types of regulatory interventions can influence the whole economic effects of 5G technology. 5G is the driver of Industrial Revolution 4 due to the fact that it it introduces new digitalized forms of transformation of production in different areas. And it means that the contribution of 5G to the global economy is impressive. Just few figures here at the slide. A lot of studies show that the contribution of 5G globally will constitute more than 13 trillion US dollars in 2035. And what is interesting here, and I will pay attention of the auditorium to the fact that the contribution from 5G initiates not from the traditional business to customer sector, but from the industry. You can see that the original info and communication will provide just 1/3 of the incomes from the manufacturing sector, and it is less than 10% of the whole contribution. Again, more than 22 million of job places will be created. A lot of studies tried to make the model how it works, what are the clusters and what are the use cases. I like the one that you can see at this slide, and it just emphasizes again the traditional user customers in the form of customer surplus is just maybe only 20% of not more than 20% of the whole scope of the contribution of 5G. You can see at the bottom of the slide that there are a lot of economic benefits provided by 5G in different areas, such as smart industry, smart rural, smart social services, and so on and so forth. And to complement 5G also provides a lot of benefits from the environmental point of view and from the social point of view. I was really surprised or pleased to find this breakdown how 5G technology works in China. For me, it was interesting to see what is the proliferation of different sectors or verticals in the economy of China. And you can see that 5G exists everywhere, starting from the water consumption to different part of manufacturers and to the hospitals and so on and so forth. On one hand, it is beneficial for the society to have this diversity, but for the regulators, that is a real headache due to the fact that new methods of regulation should be introduced. Starting from the technology, the generations before 5G were more or less physically dedicated hardware networks, and 5G is more virtual one. It's a virtual platform that could be tuned or configured based on the demands from different verticals. And this slide shows you that on one hand it established the diversity of applications, and for us, for regulators, it also provides new headaches or new required methods how to regulate it. And the major difficulty is to understand how to regulate the same player that can exist in different verticals, and what is the interrelationship between different players on the market. In order to understand it, we have tried to find the model, and this one at this slide, in my opinion, provides the good landscape to understand how it works. I will stay here maybe for 1 minute in order to give you understanding of the whole composition. Let's start from from the bottom. Usually the traditional mobile network operators are vertically based, and they do exist at different layers of applications, of enabling and physical networks. But with 5G, a set of new players appears. First of all, those are application service providers, then enablers, then different players on the physical network layer, such as the passive infrastructure players and active infrastructure players. That again, it's infrastructural sharing, and new player orchestrators will emerge in this ecosystem in order to provide ASPs with the most optimized configurations of the network. And due to this composition, regulators are faced with new needs how to respond to this composition. From the bottom, the highest investments are usually applied to the physical network layer, but the profits are coming from the highest, from the top of the composition. And so it means that ASPs are the beneficiaries who will gain more profits compared to network operators. And it makes some impulses to network operators to use different business models, how to compensate or to avoid this splitting. Again, if we have several players on the vertical level, there should be the situation that the lower layers will try to discriminate the higher players in order to, again, to compensate their profits. And if we have several players in the verticals, it means that they will cooperate with each other, and there will be the need to regulate this cooperation if those players are not ready to come to the economic agreements voluntary. Usually, there are four major types of regulatory interventions in 5G. The first is the access to the limited resources. The second is the coverage obligations. The third is the number of entrants that should be supported by the network, and network neutrality is the fourth one. And the diagram shows you that each of these interventions can have the direct and the indirect influence on the whole process, on the whole economical ecosystem. As an example, we can see that this figure provides you with the indicators how coverage obligations will impact the whole ecosystem. It is clear that the coverage obligation will burden the network operator, but on the other hand, it will support, for example, mobile network operators on the level A. And indirectly, the demand for new applications from the ASPs will also make an impulse for the network operators to extend the network. And the art of the modern regulation is just to understand how these influences should be summarized in order to get the positive total effect for the whole society. That is the specific features of the bottlenecks, they are called for 5G. The first and most important is the access to the civil infrastructure. There are several regulators could be involved in this process, and there is a need for every administration to understand which regulator will be in favor of the whole process. The second one is the backhaul. The backhaul is typically the scarce resource, and from the economical point of view, and especially in the rural areas, in the remote areas, there will be not the need to establish several backhauls. And again, the task for the regulator is to administer the process of negotiations between the backhaul operators, especially if those have the significant market power. The third problem is the access to the in-building spaces or areas. Here, new types of standards are envisaged for the constructors in order to provide the sufficient place for the equipment, in order to provide the access of different players to these multi-dwelling buildings. And spectrum. Spectrum is a natural scarce resource, and there are several methods how regulators are trying to provide the locally allocated resource, spectrum resource, to different and especially to the industrial players. I will not take too much time with these explanations on the next slides, just to indicate the coverage. For the developing countries, there is a need to be aligned with the federal programs of the universal service funds. And probably the specific feature for 5G, if we are trying to provide the coverage, maybe it is not for the population, but for the plants, for the agricultural locations. So it should be, that is the distinguished feature. The access for different players is also important, because the physical network platform provides capacity for several participants on the upper levels, and there is the need to follow how the negotiations between these players are carried out. And non-discriminative safeguards and network neutrality. That's also the innovative approach in regulation of telecommunication networks. It came from the IT area, and
Pavel.
Yes, I will complete this idea, and so if we will apply, as the regulators are trying to apply the similar requirements for the data rates, then the specifics of 5G for different verticals will be lost. I have the comparison table, but I think that we can talk on the different approaches in different countries during the questions and answers part of our session. And actually, that's all from my side.
Excellent. I must say that you touched upon many things that will be seen in session 5, I think. We have session 5 on sharing in infrastructure. So there are many panelists which have legal and regulatory background, and maybe they can deep dive into all the regulatory interventions that you pointed out on 5G. So excellent presentation. I will let the questions at the end, maybe one question for each panelist to be brief, and I hand over to Mr. Ahyan Ben Bouzid, Director of Telecommunications System Operations Center at the Algerian Space Agency. And Mr. Ben Bouzid, please be brief to 10 minutes. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين، السادة الحضور، السادة مسؤولين الهيئات والأمناء العامين، تحياتي طيبة والأخوية والقلبية. I will try to be concise over the upcoming slide, trying to showcase the impact and the role of the Algerian asset, Alcomsat-1, for the implementation and deployment of the broadband in Algeria over a very handful slides. So let's get started without further ado. So, brief words on the Algerian Space Agency. So, Algerian Space Agency is acting as a satellite operator, so dealing with all the space technology and activity in Algeria. So the first asset, Alcomsat-1, have been designed and implemented and deployed either on the space segment or the ground segment. We will see a few details in the upcoming slide. So this asset is containing KU band, like a total of 436 megahertz, split it on a set of transponders. Same thing for the KA band. So we have something like 3,200 megahertz KA. So we have other bands that are not fitted in the present context. So we will just avoid getting in details about this. So regarding the space segment, so the Algerian Space Agency has deployed, implemented, and put on service ground segment dealing with the satellite control, payload management, and applications in Algiers, specifically at Bouchaoui station, and the same fully redundant station in Wilaya of Media, precisely in Boukzoul, where we have full redundancy when it comes to SATCOM control and payload management, and as well ground segment maintenance, including baseband and radio frequency chain and antennas. Before talking about infrastructure, I need to emphasize the fact that on top all of this achievement done by ASAL, so the first thing is to put effort, a huge effort on getting the Algerian engineers trained, gaining skills over the project, and managing the space segment and the ground segment by themselves, so without any external support. We have deployed KU antennas, KA antennas, on top of a BSS band and ground segment, which is not fitting 100% with our context. So we, for instance, the present slide depicts the infrastructure when it comes to the radio frequency and the baseband. So gateways in Boukzoul for the KA, and the hub, the KU hub in Algiers. So we have deployed operation rooms and rack rooms in both sides to allow service in the satellite and managing the payload. So the next slide is the next few slides will depict the broadband applications over many aspects achieved by Alcomsat-1 till now. So we have the backhauling. It's mainly dedicated to the mobile connectivity backhauling, which were a certain amount of capacity in terms of KU, in terms of specifically KA, is dedicated to this aspect of the space application. Another application is providing connectivity to to the difficult to access areas, including isolated areas. And we have the well-known application in Algeria, which is the ESM project network, which is the project dedicated to the education and health in Algeria, where we worked with other partner companies like such as ATS to try to deploy a certain number of connectivity at the schools and hospital levels. So we have another application achieved by Alcomsat1, which is achieving connectivity for the desert area and the remote area in Algeria. So we can see many applications, mainly in the south, in the Algerian south, the providing internet and broadband to the oil company, where we cannot use classical network. So we have another application which is providing broadband and connectivity in general to the specific event like sports, when Alcomsat1 was intensively used within the Mediterranean Olympic Games held in Oran, Algeria, and as well for the tourism activities where we have no classical infrastructure. Other big application of Alcomsat1 is the emergency communication provided within with cooperation of few departments in Algeria, like the DGPC or fire department, where we achieved the big-scale ORSAC exercise in Bourg-Meknès since few years. We can see here a slide depicting the e-education application, where Alcomsat1 was significantly contributing. So now this slide summarizes different applications of Alcomsat1. So I need to mention that ASAL, the Algerian Space Agency, is acting as a satellite operator. So ASAL is working closely with another famous company in Algeria called ATS, Algeria Telecom par Satellite, acting like a VSAT operator, and they are working hand in hand to provide connectivity, whatever the application or the case. So before finishing, I would put some emphasis on some use cases. So for instance, the key ones are the use case where ASAL and ATS have provided internet connection to hospitals over the COVID breakout, where there was no connectivity provided in such a remote area or not available. Another thing, the Algerian Space Agency via Alcomsat1 contributed significantly in the launch of a TV chain now called Marifa, where ASAL with other national partners tried to provide to put available the course and training for the mid-level schools students. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Excellent presentation, Mr. Ben Bouzid. That demonstrate all the satellite initiatives and space in general initiatives in Algeria. I just want to open the Q&A session. Just one question per each panelist. I'm starting by you, Mr. Ben Bouzid, and you demonstrated very variety and diverse of use cases of satellite, from IoT, to healthcare, to agriculture, connecting the unconnected. Can you maybe just elaborate briefly on the importance of satellite connectivity from your perspective, particularly if we consider that there are some trends in integrating terrestrial and satellite segment, yes, non-terrestrial networks that becoming
in reality and standardization. So how do you see the role of, briefly, satellite communications in connecting the underserved areas? Thank you.
So, as we know all, so the satellite, the SATCOM, are not mainly intended to replace the classical grid. So they are excellent when we are off grid, like to fulfill the need that is like left behind by the classical networks. So in this situation, this is like having 100% benefits, but not just trying to replace the fiber optics or other on-grid, classical on-grid networks. So in this context, I would like to mention that as Alcomsat-1 is having a spanning lifetime of 15 years, launched on 11 December 2018. So in Algerian Space Agency, within the new space national program, which is called PSN 2020-2040, so spanning until, running until 2040, inshallah. So we have on race and we have on track the service continuity of this kind of space asset. So Algeria is now working via the Algerian Space Agency, partnering with the national department, concerned national department, to put on track the continuity of this kind of satellite. So we, till now, after a couple of years of exercising this key tool, we can say that there is a huge demand and a huge need in, for instance, the KU and KA. So there is many companies, many entity requesting at least 1 megahertz for a month. So we almost reached the available capacity. So we need to put on track the continuity of this space asset.
Excellent, excellent. And so this coordination model from ISAL and ATS may be shared with ITU so that it will be something that need to be promoted at the Arab region in terms of this great collaboration. And this is what one of the essence of this workshop is to promote the Algerian experience in connecting in the unconnected, particularly at the satellite segment. Thank you, Mr. Ben Bouzid, for this excellent presentation.
You are welcome.
Thank you. Maybe Mr. Zaid, just briefly, how, according to our session, how you can maybe tell us Jordan is leveraging evidence-based policies to accelerate broadband access. In 30 seconds, just to give opportunity to Pavel and briefly, Mr. Zaid.
Yes, Mohammed. Actually, Jordan is following on obligations and for the rollouts by operators on the 5G technologies, on the fiber, and also using satellite connections, hopefully for the unconnected areas. So all this effort hopefully will turn out to reduce the digital gap and increase the digital inclusion in the coming years.
Thank you, Zaid. Pavel, maybe in 30 seconds, right? So how you, from a regulatory perspective, you are going to leverage data for an evidence-based regulatory approach from your perspective for 5G, for instance, as your contribution was mainly on 5G.
The concept of non-terrestrial networks is very popular today in the industry and in ITU, and it is clear that the multiple players will find their dedicated place or area in future all 5G technologies. And I agree with the representatives from the satellite community that that the complementary services will be provided, and not just only by the satellite technologies, but as well as the hubs, high altitude base stations, and the ubiquitous services, applications, and coverage will be finally obtained by means of several sources of signal and several technologies.
Thank you, Pavel. Just
Thank
one last, Mr. Sig, to Mr. Brabah. On revient à la question, donc on vous donne l'opportunité d'y intervenir. Donc, comment la prise de décision basée sur les données influence-t-elle, au pluriel, les stratégies au pluriel de déploiement du haut débit en Algérie, selon vous, monsieur?
Merci pour la question. Donc, comme vous savez, la prise de décision basée sur comme vous savez, la prise de décision basée sur les données désigne l'utilisation des données par les décideurs qui guident les décideurs à prendre les bonnes décisions et au bon moment, même les décisions d'ordre stratégique. En effet, les données statistiques sont des ingrédients essentiels à l'élaboration d'une stratégie basée sur des faits réels, ce qui facilitera sa mise en œuvre et ainsi que l'évaluation par étapes de leur mise en œuvre. Aussi, si vous permettez, les données permettent l'évaluation de la réalisation des objectifs fixés dans la stratégie, qui permettra aussi de prendre les mesures correctives nécessaires au moment opportun, soit pour lever les contraintes qui freinent l'atteinte des objectifs, revoir s'il y a lieu les priorités, l'ajout des moyens, si c'est nécessaire, que ce soit les moyens humains, les moyens financiers, les moyens matériels, afin de respecter la réalisation, l'atteinte des objectifs à travers le calendrier fixé auparavant. Donc, et tout type de moyens sont importants. Ça peut être des besoins exprimés par les utilisateurs directs, comme ça peut être des données du marché, comme ça peut être récupéré à travers des benchmarks à l'international pour suivre les tendances mondiales en la matière. Par rapport aux exemples pris, je citerai quelques exemples pour la mise en œuvre de la stratégie d'atteinte des objectifs pour le haut débit. Donc, la stratégie du secteur, plusieurs objectifs ont été fixés avec un calendrier de mise en œuvre bien détaillé depuis 2020 pour la période 2020-2025. Je citerai l'exemple en Algérie en 2020, il y avait 3,8 millions d'abonnements Internet fixes, ce qui a été jugé comme ce que représente 45% des ménages, ce qui a été jugé un taux faible. Donc, il a été fixé un objectif d'atteindre les 6 millions de ménages d'ici 2025. Alhamdulillah, on est à moins de 3 mois, 2 mois avant la fin de l'année. On est à 5,9. Donc, l'objectif, bientôt, Inch'Allah, ça va atteindre. Donc, cet objectif stratégique a été fixé à travers les données.
Très bien.
Si nous avons le temps, on peut citer d'autres exemples ou bien...
Et notre objectif, c'est de terminer aussi le
Allez,
prochain
merci.
panel.
Je tiens juste à remercier les panélistes. Cette session, je sais qu'ils ont
Thank
beaucoup
you.
de choses à dire.
Ouais.
Merci à l'audience de nous avoir prêté
Thank you,
attention.
Mohamed
Merci beaucoup.
Amin Benzien, for moderating this very important panel. But time is running out, and we have another panel: co-creating solutions for connecting the unconnected. This is actually a very interesting panel. This session will present ETU tools for creating sustainable connectivity in diverse area. So we inform you also that a visit is programmed for our guests to the big mosque, Jam' al-Jazair. So we are kindly request to be present at 5 p.m. at the entrance of this school. Thank you so much.
السادة الحضور، الآن وصلنا وإياكم إلى آخر ورشة لنهار اليوم، وهي الورشة إيجاد الحلول لتوصيل غير المتصلين بالإنترنت، بحيث ستعتمد هذه الورشة على كيفية تحقيق التوصيلية الشاملة وشمول الرقمي. وستعرض في هذه الجلسة أدوات الاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات لخلق اتصال مستدام. ودون إطالة نترككم مع مديرة الجلسة السيدة عادلة مجتهد، منسقة البرامج في الأمم المتحدة وقيادة النظام السويسري، فلتتفضل مشكورة. للتذكير فقط سيقوم بعد قليل بإيصال الضيوف إلى جامع الجزائر، والذي هو معلم ديني يقع في الجزائر العاصمة، وهو أكبر مسجد في إفريقيا وثالث أكبر مسجد في العالم بعد الحرم الشريف في مكة المكرمة والمدينة المنورة.
Bonjour, good afternoon. Tasawul khair. It's my pleasure to welcome you all at the last session for today. I'm sure you're a little bit tired, but please keep it up. We have very interesting discussion for this session, co-creating solutions for connecting the unconnected. My name is Adele. I was supposed to be the moderator this morning, but we have switched with Ruda. So I'm also working for ITU. I work for a project called GIGA. For some of you that might know, is a joint partnership with UNICEF, and the mission is to connect all the schools to the internet by 2030. So I'm honored to be the moderator for today's session alongside our esteemed speakers. We are trying to keep the session for 1 hour so you can make it to your bus for the visit after this session. I just wanted to also mention that one of the main objective of this session is to keep it more actionable and discuss about more practical cases so you can really take it with you and learn from it so you can also implement them in your own projects. And without further ado, I will start by introducing our esteemed panelist, Mr. Ihar Shetko, the project officer from ITU on the project ITU Connectivity Infrastructure Maps, Mr. Sebastian Peitrigne, data scientist from ITU Broadband Connectivity Planning Tools, Mrs. Zohra Yermich, Head of Connect to Learn, Sustainability and Corporate Responsibility from Ericsson, Mr. Hani El Arja, the Vice President Connectivity Cells from MENA region and Central Asia, Eutelsat OneWeb, Mrs. Kenza Shetabi, Deputy Director of the Universal Service for Electronic Communications, Ministry of Post and Telecommunications, Mrs. Nasima Shibani, Director of Networked Quality and Customer Perception from Mobilis, Mr. Amir Kahli, Head of Interconnection and International Relations from Telecom Algeria, and Mr. Amir Benidir, Head of Sales, Marketing and Innovation Division from also Telecom Algeria. Did I cover everyone? We have a long list. Excellent. Without further ado, let me start by my dear colleague Ihar, who has prepared a long presentation for us today, but I'm hoping that you can keep it short and just cover the main point. What is important in the presentation that you have prepared for us is to let us know about the infrastructure maps that ITU, the tools that ITU is building, how countries can use from those tools, how they can be implemented in the country, and what are the complexity in the projects that you're dealing with. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you for the floor. First of all, yeah, I prepared my stopwatch, so I started the time just to keep the time in. And the presentation is devoted, devoted to the broadband mapping for ICT infrastructure development. So basically, I will be talking about how we at the ITU implement broadband maps, and maybe something you can find useful for, let's say, utilizing the services, the product, maybe contributing to this product, or maybe even implementing in your own countries. And the methodologies that we use consists of 3 steps. The first one is the data collection and the validation of this data that we collect on the ICT infrastructure. Then representing this data as visuals, like maps that help to understand the data itself for unprepared users and stakeholders. And then we use this data for analysis and infrastructure planning, usually on different connectivity initiatives and projects. Let me start with the data collection and validation. Data and mapping enable us to identify infrastructure and connectivity gaps, compare different technologies and scenarios of how we can connect unconnected, and assess feasibility of different technology solutions. So the data is different. The data that is used in telecommunications varies from geographical data to demographic data, from that helps us to outline the demand, and also compare it with the supply, which is the wired and wireless terrestrial or submarine or satellite infrastructure. And the data is classified by the sources, like whether it's government data, where it's crowdsourced or private data. Also, different entities, they might open parts of their data for let's say the contributors from the sphere, from different stakeholders, to help develop models for connectivity projects, help to make infrastructure projects implementable. But to make this data from different sources comparable and so that we could use it for the analysis, for the planning, so it should adhere to some standards. So that's why the different standards and data dictionaries are being developed. One of those is Open Fiber Standard that ITU is part of, and this is an ongoing project that is published and open to contributions. So we have to make the data standardized to be able to use it and capture from different sources. A big portion of the data that ITU collects comes from the open source, and usually, like, the people who work with this data know that this is a headache. You need to try to standardize this data. You have to georeference this data. You have to digitize this data. You have to represent it in the right format compatible with different GIS systems. And it comes also with different aspects like the data resolution. So the resolution, the precision, the accuracy of this data is different. So for instance, this picture shows like the different precision of vector data that can be used for like mapping purposes. And also the raster data is precision might be different. So we have to align all of this all together to be able to use as one source. And there are many other issues that come with open source data. The data might have duplications, it might have topology errors, it might have logical errors, and it can be located outside the expected areas. So everything should be standardized. It's called like data cleaning and the pre-processing before we can use this information. And the reason is that bad data leads to bad outputs of the analysis, and bad planning, and good data leads to good output. The second step we implement after we collect and pre-process the data is visualization. So we use different techniques to represent maps in a visual-friendly format so that can be digestible by stakeholders from different areas. So for instance, on this picture you can see the data sourced from UCLA, which is the internet speed test measurements, which shows like in which regions the average download internet speeds in fixed networks are higher than in other regions. So you can see the development and correlate this development with the presence of specific types of infrastructure. We use our tools for infrastructure mapping and planning and activities. So ITU developed a tool set, and we also utilize some open source tools. We are open source oriented because we recognize that many countries would like to build their own systems and reduce the dependency from the commercial products. So it's good to have like open source alternatives. So we use different open source tools in our workflow as well to store the data, to publish the data. So for the data storage, for instance, we use a product that was developed by Open OSGeo community, which is a community that develops open source GS tools. And this geospatial catalog, it helps us to collect and publish the data on different types of infrastructure that can be of interest to ICT industry. It's available online, so you can check it out, and you can also utilize this product for your own projects. Let's say if you have some projects related to data collection and infrastructure mapping. We have a product which is called Connectivity Infrastructure Map, which is purely based on the data research conducted online. So consultants were looking for the pictures of infrastructure, georeferencing them like from different reports, different websites and sources, putting them on the map, digitizing them. And these are the layers of transmission links across the world, which are the fiber lines, submarine cables, and the microwave links, the biggest ones. Also, we have a product developed by our colleagues from the Emergency Telecommunication Department, which is a disaster connectivity map. And they measure how disasters influence the state of infrastructure. So they launch real-time campaigns during the disaster, and they measure how infrastructure reacts, like what is the decrease in download, upload speeds, latency, and how it recovers after disasters. Also, we have like particular projects tailored to specific initiatives. Like for instance, we work with specific countries They provide more detailed data. Some of this data can be shared, some of this cannot be shared, but we provide services for them. For instance, one of the projects was implemented in Mexico and related to financial inclusion, global initiative, where the inclusion, like the amount of electronic transactions, the number of ATMs installed, was correlated with the development of telecommunication infrastructure. And we were looking for the dependencies between those two spheres. And also the school connectivity analysis maps, where we map the internet connectivity status, where we map the distance to the points of presence of fiber, where we map the distance to the cell towers of availability of mobile broadband coverage, and also the affected population. So we count the demand. And so maps are usually consist of layers. There are multiple layers that can be overlapped with each other. And in order to make the data valid, we developed a validation framework, which is actually used, which is labels the data into 4 colors. The first one is red. That means it comes from unreliable sources. Maybe some of them are restricted ones. Then amber, which means that the data comes from public sources, but might be outdated, or there might be some imperfections related to the misunderstanding of some mapping concepts. Then green status, when it's a valid public source and a reliable source. And then the blue means public, then it means that this data is being published. It's validated, we got the confirmation through the validation process, and it's published on ITU maps. So there are 2 procedures that we developed to validate the data. The first one is through the validation portal, which means the data owners can log in, check their data, leave the feedback, get the confirmation that they left the feedback, and the data status will change depending on the feedback from the data owners. And the second procedure is initiated by the ITU through the circular letters. So for instance, the ITU creates a validation request that goes to the regional offices, and the regional offices share this request with the data owners, and then we get the feedback from the data owners. In case the feedback, like there's one case when the data comes from reliable sources, but the feedback is not received within 1 month, we still publish this data. And yeah, I will not stop on the next slides. They are basically talking about the different other information that we publish on this map, including the research on the national mapping systems. And for those who are interested how we implement it in a technical way, it's through, like, basically the list of all these open source tools are on this slide. And we also have a course on broadband mapping, which is introduced on ITU Academy platform. So you can check it out. It's the introduction to broadband mapping and advanced broadband mapping, and it's available for everyone for free. Thank you very much for your attention, and that's it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for keeping it short. But before we move on, can you also mention where audience can find these tools? How can a country get access to these tools? Is it free? Is it paid?
Yeah, so basically the tools are available on the ITU website. So if you type in, let's say, the Google or any other search engine, ITU broadband maps, you will find the link to the most of these products that I mentioned. They are free of charge to use. You are free to contribute to those tools. If you see some inconsistencies, you're free to use our services that are based on these tools, and you can make a request like to the regional office in case you have like a connectivity project related to either connecting schools or hospitals or any other public entities or refugee camps or so on and so forth. So you can make this request, and then the regional office hands over this request to us, and we start working on your request. Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, there we go. Thanks. So following Ihar's insights, I want to ask Sebastian, his colleague, to also brief us on what are the upcoming tools in ITU and how countries can benefit from. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for the very warm welcome here in Algeria. So I'm going to be talking about our tools for infrastructure analysis and planning. So it's a bit like part 2 of what my colleague Ihar just presented. So he spoke a bit more about the data collection process and the visualization tools, whereas I'll be talking more about the analysis tools. I'll also try to keep this very short, and I'm timing myself so that I don't go over.
I'm timing too as well.
Yes. So I'll just skip to the first tool in our toolkit, which focuses on estimating the internet demand associated with each point of interest. So during this presentation, you might hear me use the word point of interest quite a bit. And that it's a generic term that refers to the type of service or amenity that we're trying to connect. So these are, for example, schools, hospitals, refugee camps. And so the first step to estimate how many people at that point of interest will be internet users is to essentially draw a circle around each location, which is roughly going to represent the catchment area for that point of interest. So you can think of it like a 1 kilometer buffer, for example. And then we want to count how many people live inside this catchment area. But in order to do this well, we need to have very high quality and very detailed granular population data. So most countries do have census data, which usually happens every 10 years. It's a very expensive exercise, and census counts are typically not released for very small areas to protect people's privacy, but also because statistical estimates based on small areas and a small number of people can be quite unreliable. So in order to overcome the limitations that come with census data, we actually work with modeled data that starts from those census estimates for example, a province or a region, and then break down those numbers into, because they try to predict where people live much more precisely by looking at satellite images of buildings, roads, and other signs of human habitation. The data we work from is from WorldPop, which is an organization that works out of the University of Southampton. If you're interested in population statistics, I encourage you to look at their methodology online. Yes, and once we know how many people live inside a catchment area, we multiply this number by the average demand in megabits per second for each user. Okay. The second tool in our analysis toolkit is the cell tower visibility checker. I really like this tool. So one of the ways to connect points of interest is by using point-to-point microwave technology, which beams a signal directly from a transmitter, so usually a cell tower, to a receiver, which might be an antenna at a school, for example. But in order for this to work, you need to have a clear line of sight between the sender and the receiver, and obstacles like trees or buildings can actually block or scatter the signal. Distance also plays a role, so if the receiver and the transmitter are too far apart, then the signal can weaken before it reaches its destination. So our tool checks that there's a clear visibility path between the two. And there's two examples on this slide. The example at the top shows a cell tower on top of a hill and a school at the bottom, and you can see there's a clear line. Whereas in the second example, there's a hill obstructing the two, so our tool would predict that you cannot use point-to-point for this school. Yep. Our third tool is the optical fiber path predictor. So this tool predicts the most efficient way to connect a point of interest to the existing fiber network. And you can think of it as a simulation that tries to look for the shortest possible path to connect points of interest by minimizing both the distance traveled by the fiber path and by doing that, it also minimizes the cost of laying down fiber. And yeah, I have to say it also works along existing roads, which is often more realistic than just drawing a straight line across you know, the landscape, because it makes it easier to reach and repair and maintain this fiber network. Okay. I'll move on to the next model, which is a model that checks mobile network capacity. So as you know, to connect a point of interest like a school with cellular technology, it's not enough to be within the range of the tower's signal. On top of having coverage, you also need to have, there needs to be enough capacity for you to be able to meet your demands in terms of throughput or download speed. So for example, if I'm sure you've had the experience of, you know, being in a very crowded area, you have coverage, but somehow you still can't load a page or a message. And these are the types of issues that the mobile capacity checker is trying to diagnose. And this was actually a collaboration with Ericsson, which my colleague will spend a bit more time on. Okay, the final tool is our cost calculator. So this estimates the connectivity cost for a given scenario and selects the best option to connect a point of interest. The way it works is that for each point of interest that you're trying to connect, the tool assesses the feasibility of various technologies, and I can quickly go through the different options. So for fiber, the tool is going to assess essentially whether the point of interest is close enough to a fiber node. If so, fiber becomes a good candidate technology because it's reliable and high speed. For cellular, we check whether the point of interest is within coverage for 4G or 5G. And for point-to-point microwave, we check whether there's visibility between that point of interest and any cell tower. And finally, for satellite connections, these are typically always feasible in theory, but we might only reserve them for hard-to-reach areas. And the way that we select one technology among the feasible ones is based on some internal criteria. So typically, we might just pick the cheapest option among the four, but there might be other criteria which might be related to regulations, for example. The final step is, of course, to report the deployment cost for the selected technology, which tells you how much money you would need to spend in order to both set up and maintain those new connections. I might skip the detail about what exactly goes into the cost models, but essentially they incorporate spending related to capital expenditures, so things like hardware, and also the operational expenditure. So this is the money you have to spend every year to keep the connection alive. Yes, just to wrap things up, I just want to underline that with the tools that I've presented, you can actually do quite a lot, and you can simulate different scenarios for connectivity. Each of the models that I've presented has a combination of settings and parameters, and you can play around with the parameters for each scenario. So for example, we can restrict how long a fiber connection is allowed to go on, and let's say that the fiber line is only allowed to be 1 kilometer long, then not many points of interest are going to be connected with fiber, whereas if they're allowed to be like 5 or 10 kilometers long, you can see that there's many more schools connected with fiber. So yeah, 10 minutes, I'm just going to wrap up. Thank you for listening. We'll answer any questions that you might have about the tools. And also, Ihar, my colleague, and I will be delivering training on Wednesday and Thursday. So if you are coming, you'll be able to get your hands dirty and learn about these models in much more detail. And I look forward to seeing you there if you are coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian, and thank you so much for the compelling presentation. I hope it's useful for the audience here. And I encourage everyone to reach out to Ihar and Sebastian if they have more questions. You mentioned about the collaboration with Ericsson, so I think that's a great transition to turn into our next speaker, Zohra. Yes, please.
Should I go ahead then?
Yes, please. I want to address if you have any things to add about the collaboration on the white paper with ITU, but also address the main question, because we know Ericsson has many activities with governmental, local stakeholders and other agencies. How do you see this approach?
Thank you, Adele. I'll try to be quick, and I'll be skipping a number of slides given the time limit. But essentially, I'll be starting by the collaboration with ITU. And my presentation was expected to be much more about stakeholder engagement and cross-sectoral collaboration to address the digital divide. So with that in context, we've heard this morning about the fact that achieving widespread connectivity involves overcoming technical, logistical, financial barriers, with solutions ranging from fiber, mobile, and satellite solutions. Now, to aid policymakers and industry leaders, ITU and Ericsson are collaborating to develop tools such as the connectivity planning platform, which was highlighted by the ITU colleague Sebastian. And essentially, the connectivity planning platform offers countries and stakeholders an efficient and transparent method for optimizing network design, as was presented here, to connect, again, point of interest, as was described. So this approach reduces information asymmetry, and essentially it's intended to provide tools to lower costs by being able to compare the cost of different solutions practically to connect specific points or institutions, you could say, and ultimately basically enhancing the solutions that are used to connect. So that's the intention with that tool, which you see in the middle. And we had started a collaboration building that particular tool. Now, as we've been growing the collaboration, we've now moved into, basically we will be presenting a white paper on transformational connectivity and digital inclusion, which we expect to become, so there will be a white paper followed by a playbook, which we expect to become a vital resource for industry leaders and policymakers. And the intention with ultimately the playbook is to provide actionable insights to ensure that connectivity efforts are brought to everyone. So the white paper that you will see published in the coming weeks is supposed to address topics from how can transformational connectivity bridge the digital divide? And the intention is that it's not just about connecting individuals, but also giving them the tools to be empowered and to contribute through these tools. So we will be looking at specific points such as the impact on industries and SMEs, fostering innovation and technology development, and the roadmap to transformational connectivity. We'll also, in the paper, we are looking at challenges and opportunities in building universal and meaningful connectivity. So everything from technical challenges, regulatory ones, financial, and hopefully providing solutions that would be useful to policymakers. Now, ultimately, as we will be working both on the tool and the white paper, this will also accumulate in 2025 on a capacity building program for policymakers and decision makers. Basically to make sure that actually these tools are well understood and that there's a whole program behind it to help governments really know how to use them properly. So now that was the aspect of the collaboration that we currently have with ITU. What I had initially prepared was to talk more generally about a multi-stakeholder approach with a number of aspects for why it is important to engage governments and local stakeholders. As you can see, the slide is a bit crowded. It will be made available, so I suppose that you will be able to access the information later. And I'm mindful of my colleagues who are coming after me. So I would say there are a number of methods also, and here I was planning to give examples through these models of how to engage stakeholders, give examples in different countries, from public-private partnerships, for instance, an example from India, how the government had involved the private sector to connect basically people in remote areas, community-based approaches, how the communities were involved to train people. There's a number of methodologies here for how to engage stakeholders, particularly at the local level, to create sustainable methods. Unfortunately, I'll be skipping this maybe a little more theoretical type of slide. But instead, I'll give you a couple of insights on two concrete cases, and those are the ones in my capacity of driving a digital education program at Connect to Learn at Ericsson. I'm quite heavily involved with some of the colleagues here. So the GIGA initiative was mentioned earlier, which is a global program led by ITU and UNICEF to connect all the schools around the world. There are about 6 million schools to the internet. Now, half of them are connected today. So what is important here is to note that the approach that GIGA is taking is very much of a collaborative approach, working directly with the local governments and sometimes even at a granular level, local stakeholders like the schools and so on, to understand the needs on the ground, engaging also the private sector like us, Ericsson, to essentially for knowledge sharing and capacity building and basically collaborating in building essential tools that can help us understand the quality of the connectivity and the solutions to connect schools. It's a data-driven approach, and there is an essential component of capacity building so that it's a sustainable approach on the ground. Now, what we've learned from GIGA is that while we are focusing in this case on bringing connectivity to the countries and the stakeholders, we can't stop there. For instance, in this case, we are working with schools. We can't stop at bringing connectivity to the door of the schools and then nothing else. So with that in mind, with the UN body, we are involved with a number of other stakeholders. You have the UN body through UNICEF, UNESCO, ITU. You have funding agencies, development agencies like the World Bank, the Global Partnership for Education. It's the biggest funder for education around the world. OECD and the private sector. You have Microsoft, Google, you have other entities like ISPs, Telefonica, and many other organizations. So it's a collaboration, really strong public-private collaboration that is looking at the transformation of the education system in a holistic way. So as you can see, for most of us here, we are focusing on the connectivity aspect, which is one of the pillars, but it's important to really take a comprehensive approach to digital transformation, going everything from building a proper coordination and leadership to building capacity, in this case within the education system, through the government and all the way through the schools. In this case, securing content, training of the teachers, but also basically having a proper business model, a sustainable financing model to sustain this digital transformation. So this is a very specific example from the education system. How do we digitize the whole education system? So with this collaborative, we basically go to governments and advise them as one unit, as one advisory body on how they can think their strategy for digital transformation. I think I will end with this. I have no idea how long time I took. I tried to be efficient, so I hope that was useful to you.
Thank you so much, Zohra. And you actually mentioned a really important point, and that's the sustainability point of these projects. When it comes to digital transformation, I think this is the main point. We want to make sure that this project initiative stays in the country for the benefit of the country and it doesn't get forgotten afterwards. I would like to also now turn to our next speaker, Mr. El Araj. Yes. Alors, je vais faire en français. Dans votre expérience avec Eutelsat OneWeb, dites-nous comment les opérateurs de satellites peuvent collaborer avec les gouvernements, les partenaires technologiques et les organisations communautaires pour développer des solutions durables, adaptées aux besoins des régions mal desservies. Comment? Oui.
Bonsoir. Je tiens tout d'abord à remercier l'organisateur de cet événement. Je me présente, je suis Hani Al-Arja, vice-président de la connectivité au sein de la boîte Eutelsat OneWeb. Pour ceux qui ne connaissent pas, Eutelsat OneWeb est un opérateur satellitaire qui est le premier au monde et qui possède les deux orbites, orbite géostationnaire et orbite basse. L'orbite géostationnaire, normalement, est le satellite, comme on dit, traditionnel, qui est à 36 000 km, qui est fixe par rapport à la Terre et a besoin des équipements qui sont des paraboles, des antennes paraboliques, avec une technologie radio et un petit peu compliquée concernant les technologies qui sont maintenant. En fait, il y a quelques années, avec l'avancement de la technologie, on a pu lancer une constellation des satellitaires à orbite basse, environ 650 satellites. Et cette technologie, en fait, peut en fait avancer l'adaptation de la connectivité du fait que elle est plus simple à déployer, elle est plus simple à tourner et elle aussi donne aux utilisateurs finaux un débit plus élevé et une installation beaucoup moins compliquée. De ce fait, comment aider les non connectés dans ces régions? C'est comme son Excellence le ministre le matin, il a dit qu'il faut que la connectivité soit partout dans le pays, n'importe quel endroit et n'importe quel est le statut économique de la région ou bien de la communauté. En fait, à l'époque, avec la technologie satellitaire traditionnelle, comme on dit, ce n'était pas beaucoup possible parce que les coûts d'installation, les coûts de la bande passante étaient un petit peu élevés. Maintenant, avec cette nouvelle technologie, c'est une technologie familiale qui fonctionne avec des antennes qui sont plates, comme des modems, et on peut atteindre des débits beaucoup plus élevés avec une latence minimale. Comment comparer avec les communautés et le gouvernement? En fait, le service qu'on fournit, ce n'est pas un service Internet, c'est juste une pipe satellitaire. Et là-dessus, on peut mettre un réseau privé, de l'Internet, ce que vous voulez. Et normalement, le gouvernement ou bien l'entité gouvernementale, elle a certaines prérequises au niveau de sûreté nationale et l'encryption et tout ça. ce qu'ils peuvent faire de leur méthode. Et de la partie communauté, on travaille normalement avec des partenariats avec les sociétés locales et les gouvernements locaux pour avoir des produits finaux qui correspondent à ce que attend la communauté. En fait, par exemple, il y a la community Wi-Fi qui est en grosso modo un terminal qui arrive au village et ensuite on distribue à travers ce terminal la connexion Internet à travers le fournisseur local à toute la communauté du village. Et aussi, on n'oublie pas que la coopération avec l'ITU pour le spectre et pour les licences gouvernementales à l'appui de ça, c'était intégré avec tout. Allô? Ah, voilà. Bon, ça c'est en général, je ne peux pas prendre beaucoup de temps, mais si vous avez des questions, je serai là pour répondre.
Merci beaucoup. J'encourage tout le monde à adresser des questions après le panel. Permettez-moi de me tourner vers Madame Chetabi. Bonjour. Madame Chetabi, quelle stratégie l'Algérie met-elle en place pour garantir l'accès à la connectivité pour les populations éloignées et défavorisées? S'il vous plaît, oui.
السلام عليكم السادة الحضور سيدات والسادة ضيوف الجزائر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. سأحاول الإجابة على سؤال من خلال تقديم عرض حول تجربة الجزائر في تعميم الاتصالات خاصة في المناطق النائية من خلال تفعيل آلية الخدمة الشاملة للاتصالات الإلكترونية. يعتبر النفاذ إلى خدمات الاتصالات الإلكترونية حقا التزمت الدولة الجزائرية بضمانه لكل مواطن، حيث شرعت الدولة الجزائرية بحلول سنة 2000 بتبني سياسة قطاعية للاتصالات الإلكترونية، وذلك بتهيئة بيئة قانونية تنافسية وتحسين فرص الحصول على خدمات الاتصالات الإلكترونية في جميع أنحاء الوطن. في هذا الصدد ولضمان الإنصاف في الوصول إلى خدمات الاتصالات الإلكترونية تقرر وضع آلية الخدمة الشاملة تتمثل الأهداف والأولويات الرئيسية لتنفيذ السياسة القطاعية فيما يخص الخدمة الشاملة للاتصالات الإلكترونية في ضمان توفير النفاذ إلى شبكات الاتصالات الإلكترونية لجميع المواطنين، ديمومة تقديم خدمات الاتصالات الإلكترونية بما فيها الإنترنت، الوصل بالشبكات العمومية لضمان استمرارية الخدمة، وكذا تطوير وديمومة المنشآت الأساسية التي تضمن النفاذ للجميع. بالنسبة لتمويل مشاريع الخدمة الشاملة، يتم التكفل بمشاريع الخدمة الشاملة من خلال صندوق الخدمة الشاملة الذي يتم تمويله من خلال مساهمات متعاملي القطاع متعاملي الاتصالات الإلكترونية بنسبة تصل إلى 3% من رقم الأعمال، في حين أن منح مشاريع الخدمة الشاملة يكون من خلال المزايدة بإعلان المنافسة، حيث يتم مراعاة مبدأ الموضوعية والشفافية وعدم التمييز في اختيار المتعاملين. بالنسبة لمشاريع الخدمة الشاملة للاتصالات الإلكترونية، سنحاول عرض أهم المشاريع بدءاً بسنة 2017 في إطار تنفيذ السياسة العامة للحكومة الرامية إلى ضمان التغطية الواسعة لمناطق الجنوب بشبكات الاتصالات ومن أجل تلبية الحاجات الملحة التي تعبر عنها ساكنة المناطق المعزولة، تم الشروع في إطلاق مشروع متكامل يعتمد على استعمال وسائل التراسل السلكية وكذا عبر الساتل من خلال إقامة محور سواتل من أجل تلبية احتياجات الاتصالات اللاسلكية في المناطق المعزولة، وكذا إنجاز وصلات بالألياف البصرية على مسافة 2400 كيلومتر، وهذا من أجل تلبية احتياجات المناطق المعزولة وجعل الخدمة الشاملة لفائدة الجميع ممكن وبأسعار معقولة. سنة 2019 هي الأخرى عرفت إطلاق عدة مشاريع، من بينها توفير التغطية بشبكتي الهاتف والإنترنت الثابت لفائدة أو لأزيد من 500 منطقة معزولة عبر كافة التراب الوطني، وكذا إنجاز وصلات بالألياف البصرية على مسافة تفوق 1200 كيلومتر. أما بخصوص سنة 2024 يعني هذه السنة عرفت إطلاق مشروع الخدمة الشاملة للاتصالات الإلكترونية من أجل تغطية 1400 منطقة ذات كثافة سكانية منخفضة بشبكة الهاتف النقال من الجيل الرابع. هذا المشروع الذي مر بعدة مراحل، بدءا بإحصاء المناطق المؤهلة للاستفادة من البرنامج وصولا إلى إعداد دفتر الشروط، ثم الشروع في المزايدة بإعلان المنافسة. حاليا المشروع في طور الإنجاز، حيث انطلقت الأشغال به شهر جوان الماضي. الصورة لموقع تم وضعه حيز الخدمة لإحدى المناطق المعزولة موضوع المشروع. في الختام يمكن القول أن الخدمة الشاملة أداة مهمة للسياسة العامة والتخطيط الإقليمي، فهي تجعل من الممكن من ناحية ضمان التماسك الإقليمي من خلال التوفيق بين تنوع الأقاليم وتقليل عدم المساواة بين المواطنين، من ناحية أخرى توفير لكل شخص يعيش في المناطق المعزولة وغير مربحة اقتصادياً للمتعاملين وسائل النفاذ إلى خدمات الاتصالات الإلكترونية، وعلى وجه الخصوص خدمات النفاذ إلى الإنترنت بأسعار معقولة. شكراً على حسن الانتباه.
Merci beaucoup d'avoir respecté le temps. Très bien. Alors, j'aimerais demander là maintenant la question à Monsieur Carly. Monsieur Carly, quel rôle joue la prise de décision basée sur les données dans la priorisation oh là là, j'arrive pas, je suis trop fatiguée. Investissement pour les infrastructures dans les régions non connectées en Algérie. Merci beaucoup.
La thématique d'aujourd'hui qui s'articule sur le thème How to connect the unconnected doit s'achever une fois que deux autres chapitres sont clos, qui sont How to connect what is not yet connected and how to enhance the connectivity of what is already connected. Donc, comment améliorer la connectivité et comment parachever la connectivité. Donc, je vais vous parler d'un domaine qui est un petit peu hybride entre le commercial et la technique, qui s'appelle l'interconnexion, en mettant en évidence les enjeux que ça a ce domaine dans le domaine des TIC en Algérie. Une petite introduction sur le domaine de l'interco, Donc, deux définitions, comme je l'ai dit, c'est un domaine hybride entre la technique et le commercial. Donc, il désigne la connexion des réseaux de différents opérateurs qui permet des échanges de tout type de données, de trafic, de SMS et des appels. Cette connexion est cruciale entre les opérateurs pour que les utilisateurs finaux puissent échanger des communications ou des données. Dans le volet commercial, c'est une prestation réciproque offerte entre deux opérateurs de télécommunications, qui sont bien sûr titulaires d'autorisation. Le rôle de l'interconnexion dans le haut débit en Algérie, ce dernier joue un rôle vraiment majeur. Il rend la connexion de plus en plus rapide et fiable en augmentant la portée de la couverture. Les opérateurs mobiles ont des obligations pour couvrir le territoire national. C'est à travers leur backbone et l'interconnexion qu'ils arrivent à atteindre cet objectif. Plusieurs technologies de haut débit sont combinées avec une capacité de bande passante de plus en plus évolutif. Donc ces données sont utilisées aussi pour densifier la connectivité, comme je l'ai dit au début, how can we enhance the connectivity, pour offrir des services, bien sûr, de qualité aux utilisateurs finaux, ce qui permet de renforcer la performance du réseau en disposant d'une transmission rapide et stable. Donc il faut améliorer la qualité de la connectivité, parachever la couverture des réseaux avant d'entamer le réseau 5G. Donc le critère qualité et de choix, nous allons entendre aussi par la suite quel est le rôle de la qualité dans un réseau. Donc l'interconnexion est le support de cette connectivité qui devient indispensable aujourd'hui pour renforcer la couverture. En Algérie, Algérie Télécom a desservi plus de 40 000 km de fibre optique en 3 ans au profit des opérateurs mobiles pour densifier leur couverture. En troisième lieu, optimisation des communications pour les sites distants. Donc, il y a un autre volet qui joue sur la qualité, le facteur optimisation. En dernier lieu, la flexibilité, ce qu'on appelle scalability. Donc, il faudrait intégrer toutes les nouvelles technologies dans les connectivités, selon le besoin et selon l'utilisation. Ça peut aller de l'intelligence artificielle, IoT, virtualisation et tout ce qui s'ensuit. En Algérie aussi, les connectivités à l'international sont très importantes. Vous savez que l'accès à Internet, à travers l'infrastructure d'Algérie Télécom, est relié à travers ses propres câbles sous-marins. Donc, sans cette interconnexion à l'international, qui simplifie le partage des données entre notre pays et le reste du monde, les informations ne peuvent pas circuler à l'échelle mondiale. En outre, c'est par le biais de cette interconnexion que le développement numérique en Algérie et même ailleurs est rendu possible. Algérie Télécom a développé une ossature diversifiée, plusieurs câbles sous-marins, plusieurs liaisons terrestres. La position de l'Algérie au nord de l'Afrique lui permet d'être un hub régional. Plusieurs projets sont en cours pour connecter l'Algérie à la région du Sahel, desservant un petit peu cette zone qui est dépourvue de connectivité entre l'Afrique et l'Europe. Quelques exemples sur les services offerts. Cette partie est aussi importante. Quand on parle de connectivité, on parle de services qui accompagnent la connectivité. Donc fourniture de différents types de connectivité par des liaisons louées, par des liaisons spécialisées, colocalisation entre les opérateurs, partage d'infrastructures, offre de services aériens au droit irrévocable d'utilisation sur les fibres optiques, location de capacité Internet et bien sûr le service peering, ainsi que le raccordement du dernier kilomètre, qui est un élément essentiel aussi dans le service universel. Un petit aperçu sur un service de connectivité qu'offre Algérie Télécom et qu'encourage à utiliser de plus en plus, les connectivités de type peering, qui est un accord d'interconnexion aussi qui permet à deux opérateurs de s'échanger du contenu data qu'ils adressent mutuellement sans utiliser la bande passante, donc en diminuant la latence. Avantage de ce type de service, il améliore la qualité par la réduction de la latence, je viens de le dire. Il sécurise les échanges data, donc on utilise un canal dédié. On rationalise l'exploitation de la bande passante et on réduit bien entendu les coûts d'exploitation et les charges. Un deuxième service, qui est le partage d'infrastructures, ou ce qu'on appelle le telco sharing. Ce service est conçu dans le cadre de mutualisation des ressources. Donc, il consiste à mettre à disposition à tous les opérateurs qui le souhaitent une parcelle ou des sites d'accès qui lui permettent d'installer dans des espaces dédiés, indoor ou outdoor, ou sur un pylône, leur équipement de télécommunication. Ce point aussi est un service qui permet de renforcer les connectivités dans les zones rurales et dans les zones dépourvues de connectivité. Enfin, je voulais dire qu'Algérie Télécom aussi est en train de penser de déployer de multi-data centers dans le pays. Vous savez, ce nœud, c'est un pilier numérique très important pour justement renforcer les points de concentration des données et aussi l'échange de services cloud au mieux desservis dans le plus proche des régions. Nous voyons un petit peu que le futur de l'interconnexion pour Algérie Télécom va être un enjeu majeur. Algérie Télécom projette de déployer des nouveaux data centers. Le but aussi est de réduire la latence à travers les services et les connectivités offertes. Par sa position, Algérie Télécom pourra être un hub régional permettant de connecter l'ensemble des pays de l'Afrique du Nord à l'Afrique du Sud jusqu'à l'Europe. Et ce développement stratégique permettra aussi de permettre la transformation digitale du pays et de la région en utilisant avec aisance l'ensemble des futures technologies telles que l'intelligence artificielle et l'Internet des objets. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup. Parfait, merci. Alors, je vais tourner vers Madame Chibani à côté de moi. Madame Chibani, pouvez-vous partager avec nous comment l'assurance de la qualité du réseau et des expériences positives des clients s'intègre-t-elle dans les efforts pour connecter les non connectés? Merci beaucoup.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم مرحبا بالجميع. So we are offering connectivity to our customers. So it's very important to get visibility about the quality of the service offered and also to have visibility about how the customer is perceiving this quality. So we will present to you how we are measuring the quality of service and the approach implemented for customer satisfaction. In order to measure the quality of service provided, we are using several tools. First one is Smart Care. This tool allows a proactive and intelligent approach to manage the network. Based on some principal case, the most important are predictiveness. So Smart Care analyze a large amount of data, a very huge volume of information from the system. These data help to anticipate a potential outage, to identify a trend and optimize network performance. From the proactivity side, instead of waiting the problems to occur, Smart Care allows us for a preventive intervention. This prevention allows the maintenance team to resolve the problem before they occurs, before they impact the users. It gives us also use cases which are useful for marketing teams, for network KPI end-to-end analysis, and for network K quality indicator service analysis. And also interoperability performance analysis, and allow, of course, planning studies and optimization using discovery module. This solution is from our vendor. We have another tool to monitor or to measure the quality of service, which is a drive test solution, TIMS investigation. It's a powerful drive test solution for in-depth network testing and troubleshooting. It's used for several cases. The most important are initial network setup. It can assess the performance of newly deployed network and identify areas to improve. The second point is about new technology site acceptance. When we are deploying a new site, we need to meet performance requirements. if they are ready to be launched to the commercial launch. From the other side, we have some software upgrade verification. So to ensure that the software upgrade made in the network don't impact negatively the performance. So we use in this case also the drive test. At the third point, new features. When we implement new features in the network, we need to make a check and confirm if these features don't impact the network negatively. So at the end, we use also the network troubleshooting. So we make diagnose and resolve network issues that affect the user's experience. So also the TEMS investigation support a wide range of devices and scanners and chipset. It also includes a set of predefined sequence tests, which make easily the test operation. We are also using another tool, which is NetMax LTU Network Optimization System, which is an intelligent network optimization system. It collects also a massive amount of data from the network, including measurement report and call detail traces. NetMax also help engineers optimization to more efficient actions. In traditional way, we are using a drive test solution. A drive test solution don't give us a deep visibility about network quality of service, mainly in indoor area. So NetMax solution provide us a virtual test analysis. This virtual test analysis can allow us to customize road coverage analysis, region coverage analysis, and quickly identify customized area coverage issues. So we can identify all the overshooting area, overlap, and weak coverage area. So mainly, it's the main roles of this NetMax solution is a coverage analysis, interference analysis, performance analysis, parameter optimization, and some network simulation. We are also using some other vendors' tool for monitoring, such as U31, U2000, and business objects. As we said, it's important to get visibility how a subscriber is perceiving this quality of service. So we are implemented an approach for customer satisfaction. This approach is based on proactive actions through careful monitoring of network performance. Some action are taken to avoid some problem and consequently customer complaint. We are trying to anticipate. This measurement also that are done allow us to confirm the resolution of some problem. This is from customer perception. We are also making a permanent control of the network capacity usage to avoid some congestion and some limitations. We are also making a predictive analysis of traffic trend in order to predict the necessary extension of the network capacity. We work also on end-to-end quality of service. We even approach our customer to measure their perception through satisfaction survey and digital interaction. From the other side, we are offering a wide variety of offers, affordable, to different social classes. And we are making user strategy migration based on subscriber or customer profile, based on customer needs and service used coverage in the area or in the location. At the end, we can summarize the approach implemented in the below diagram. So we are focusing on the network key performance indicator for the different layer of the network. I mean core network, transmission and access network. We are also going to the quality of service observation and follow-up through the observing the quality of the service added value services provided And at the end, we approach the customer to get visibility about their emotion and their experience. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madame Shibani. With that, let me turn to our last speaker, last but not least, Mr. Benidir. Alors, je vais faire en français aussi. Quel rôle jouent les logiciels et les solutions géospatiales dans ça revient encore. L'élaboration d'une stratégie d'investissement et l'amélioration de la satisfaction et de l'expérience. Et je m'excuse encore pour précipiter les interventions. C'est par rapport à le temps qu'on va. Merci beaucoup.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. مرحبا بضيوفنا الكرام. تعمل اتصالات الجزائر على بسط الشبكات من أجل تقديم خدمات التدفق العالي والجد العالي لكل العائلات في الجزائر والمؤسسات الاقتصادية والمؤسسات الحكومية. لهذا هناك عدة مشاريع لبسط الشبكات في المناطق البيضاء كما يسمى المناطق البيضاء وتجديد الشبكات القديمة. زميلي قدم عرض في السيسيون الماضية أين شفنا مراحل تطوير شبكات النفاذ في الجزائر. وهذه التطويرات تخضع إلى دراسات جيوتسويقية باستعمال أدوات. لما نشوف تطور مراحل تطور اللي زوفر في الجزائر بين 2020 و 2024 تضاعف التدفق الأدنى من 2 ميجا إلى 10 ميجا وبنفس التسعيرة حاليا $11.93، وتضاعف الحد الأعلى التدفق الأعلى 10 مرات من 100 ميجا إلى 1 جيجا، وبتخفيض في السعر يقدر ب 58%. 1 جيجا كي نشوفوا في المنطقة أظن أننا أول متعامل من حيث الزبائن في تدفق 1 جيجا، لأنه كي نشوفوا في إفريقيا هناك بعض الدول أطلقوا 1 جيجا ولكن بصفة تجريبية. نعد أكثر من 28,000 زبون في تدفق 1 جيجا. هذا السلايد شفناه في عدة مداخلات، ولكن هنا كاين لاكتواليزاسيون برك. عدد زبائن FTTH 1,577,000 زبون. استراتيجية تسويقية لاتصالات الجزائر اللي بازي سوغ لا فيبر، وهذا لتقديم خدمات أخرى للزبائن كسمارت هوم، سمارت IoT، قريبا ستريمينج، جيمينج، وكل هذه متوافقة مع استراتيجية تسويقية واستراتيجية اتصالية محكمة. أنا سأجيب على السؤال تاعكم تاع استعمال لي سيستم دانفورماسيون جيوغرافيك. لي سيستم دانفورماسيون جيوغرافيك يسمحوا لنا باش تكون عندنا النجاعة في الاستثمارات ومردودية الاستثمارات تاع أي متعامل اقتصادي، لأنه يصبو إلى نجاعة اقتصادية ومردودية الاستثمارات. لذلك استعمال الأنظمة المعلوماتية الجغرافية يساعدها في الربح السريع واسترجاع الأموال المستثمرة. لو كان نشوفوا هنا كيفية استعمال المنظومة المعلوماتية الجغرافية. هنا نشوفوا تطوير ولاية قسنطينة في الجزائر. بالأصفر نشوفوا المعدات القديمة أمصان، وبالأزرق نشوفوا تحويلها إلى شبكات التدفق العالي والجد العالي FTTH. في 2022 شهدت تسارع في بسط الشبكات كما رانا نشوفوا. و2024 شهدت أن أول ولاية يعني ثاني ولاية فول أكبر يعني حجم يعني يعني ولات 100% FTTH. هنا نعود يعني الاستعمال يعني للوجيسيال سيغ في كشف المناطق البيضاء. أعود برك إلى ملاحظة تاع أختنا من العراق صباح اللي قالت بلي عندنا صعوبات في معرفة يعني النقاط البيضاء. لما نستعمل ان سيستم دانفورماسيون جيوغرافيك ويكون عندنا يعني لي دوني جيوغرافيك تاع المعدات اللي عندنا حاليا، لو سيستم بو ديتيكتي ديراكتومون لي زون بلانش كيما هذه ديراكتومون elle est détectée par le logiciel. Donc elle est détectée directement par le logiciel. Et ومن بعدها هناك دراسات ميدانية حول يعني التكنولوجيا اللي حنستعملوها. احنا يعني لو لوجيسيل il détecte يعني المكان mais il faut toute une étude pour le choix des équipements. قادر نروحوا ب 4G قادر نروحوا ب FTTH قادر نروحوا. Mais le système informatique géographique peut répondre à votre problématique. مي لازم تكونوا دخلتوا ديجا لي دوني المسبقه تاع لي زوتر زيكيبمون باش يكروازي لي دوني ويخرج لكم المعلومات الانسب. Donc c'est bon d'avoir raison, mais il faut avoir un peu l'expérience client et la qualité reçue par les clients. Donc Agiré Télécom utilise aussi les outils tels que Okla Speed Test. Parce qu'il est bon d'avoir des systèmes d'information propres à l'entreprise, que ce soit les NMS ou bien les systèmes de gestion de réseau, ou bien يعطون يعني معلومات حول حالة يعني شبكة النفاذ تاعنا. ولكن الأحسن أنه نشوفوا الإدراك تاع المستهلك اللي يشوفوه في سبيد تيست. لما نشوفوا يعني تطور لا ميديان تاع الجزائر كلها في ضمن سنة يعني من نوفمبر، يعني زدنا تقريبا 3 ميجا في لا ميديان تاع الجزائر، وهذا بعد إطلاق عروض جديدة وخدمات جديدة وكذلك تطوير الشبكة وتحويل أكثر من 600 ألف زبون جديد في ال FTTH. فيما يخص الجزائر يعني العاصمة، هنا نشوفوا لا ميديان أكبر. هذه عينة أصغر من العينة الأولى. الأولى كانت هذه تضم كاع التراب الوطني، هذه تضم إلا الجزائر العاصمة. دونك لا ميديال تاع لو داونلود كانت 14.29 ميجا، أصبحت 32 ميجا، أي ما يعادل 130% زيادة في لا ميديان تاع الأبلود. وتاع الداونلود كانت 4.2 ميجا وأصبحت 15.99 ميجا. أخيراً يعني الاكسبيريونس كليون ولا الإدراك الزبون يسمح لنا يعني بتوجيه وتطوير الشبكات. هذه سي اون كارتوغرافي تاع لي تيست تاع سبيد تيست pour la wilaya d'Alger. Donc ça veut dire nous avons des zones qui sont à moins de 5 mégas ou bien entre 5 et 10 mégas. Donc ça veut dire là ça nous pousse à accélérer le déploiement au niveau des régions qui ont un débit assez moyen afin d'avoir du très haut débit, une qualité de service. Merci de votre attention.
Merci pour votre présentation. I know that each panelist had probably much more to share, but I want to thank warmly every one of you for keeping the time. We had a short time, under 75 minutes. 2-hour session is over. Thank you so much for your participation. I hope you have learned something and you will get the chance to engage with the panelists here. I also would like to extend my thanks to the Algerian Telecommunication and also the government for facilitating this event. And I wish you all a great evening. Thank you so much.
Bien sûr. Thank you so much for this very interesting panel. I thank you for all the panelists for your intervention, for your presentation. I don't know if you have time to take 1 or 2 questions, but I think it's time to visit for our guests to visit the big mosque, Jam' al-Jazair. A bus is waiting for you right now. Azdin, the bus is waiting. Yes, okay. So it was a pleasure serving you today, and we're gonna meet tomorrow, inshallah.
نشكر كل المتحدثون في الورشات على كل التفاصيل والشروحات المقدمة، وصلنا وإياكم السادة الحضور ضيوفنا الأكارم إلى ختام اليوم الأول لأشغال ورشة العمل الإقليمية للاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات. ويتفضل السادة الضيوف لزيارة المسجد الأعظم. السادة الحضور من فضلكم وضع السماعات الترجمة فوق الطاولات. يتجدد موعدنا وإياكم غدا بحول الله في حدود 9 صباحا لمتابعة بقية الورشات. السادة ضيوف الأكارم، نتمنى لكم إقامة طيبة في الجزائر.